So you want to paint Space Marines fast. Well, today I'm going to show you how I got these 100 Ultramarines painted to battle ready in just 15 minutes apiece. Then I'll show you how to take your Marines to the next level using 3 brand new techniques and just 5 more minutes per Marine. What's going on, everyone? Nick with CC Minis here, and today, oh baby, today we're going to paint 100 Space Marines as fast as humanly possible. But why? Why would I do something like this? Well, I just admitted to myself after years of self-repression that I love Space Marines, and the Ultramarines in particular. But I don't want to speed paint this army. No, I want to get lost in the cool stuff. I want to spend my time on dreadnoughts, hover tanks, blade guard veterans, maybe even a godforsaken Thunderhawk. But first I need to deal with the backbone of any good Astartes force. A whole bunch of basic Primaris dudes with equally basic loadouts, who I will lovingly refer to from here on as my basic blue bastards. Alright, you read, Fred? Time to get blue. Let's do this. So what do we got here? Well, you have your basic 20 regular intercessors, a whopping 30 chainsword wielding assault intercessors, 20 self-detonating hellblasters, 10 skirt guard, I mean stern guard veteran, 20 fiery infernus marines, and a couple hours a night to work on these with the goal of getting them done in 33 hours, or slightly less than 20 minutes a pop over 100 models. Now before we start, let's do some prep work and set some expectations. I'm going to time, notate, and document every moment and minute that I'm painting these Marines, specifically painting. There are some things that will not be included in time calculations of this project, and for good reason. I did not include basing, which was done simply with a texture paste and some of these lovely rocks my son brought to me from his old daycare's playground.
This?
Ooh. Thanks, buddy.
A stick?
Thanks, buddy. These are perfect. Love you, dude. I'm also not timing how long it took to mount these basic blue bastards on some rulers with double stick tape. Although this will be a huge time saver in the long term, I do not want to dirty my data with prep work or cleanup time. Okay, enough BSing, let's get to painting these basic blue bastards. To paint a beautiful blue, I'm going to start with a ruddy red. Ultramarine is on the redder side of the blue gamut, and I like how Ultramarine blue interacts with a redder undertone. And I'm applying it with an airbrush sent for me from a new, well, at least new to me, airbrush manufacturer, Gallery. Full transparency, Gallery did not pay me for this airbrush, they just sent it out for me to try. And I like it. It has a lot of features that I really appreciate and enjoyed using it. I liked it so much that I ended up purchasing one of their more budget-friendly airbrushes as well to test out, as I'm always looking for a good, inexpensive option to point people towards who are looking to get into airbrushing. Many of the Gallery airbrushes, including that more budget-friendly one, can use this unique fan pattern air cap with a 0.5mm needle. This air cap changes the shape of the pattern of the spray when it comes out. Instead of like a perfect circle, it's more like a line. And using the fan tip, I had absolutely no issues with clogging. Even priming for 73 minutes straight, the airbrush held up fantastically, with not a spit or a sputter in sight. Although the cleanup was a little gross afterwards. Look at all that stuff building up there on that tip. Yeesh. Next I moved on to the blue. This blue is straight Ultramarine blue from Procryl. This was a true zenithal, hitting the models from a 45-ish degree angle from the top down and making sure that almost all the model was blue, leaving just hints of the red primer in the undersides and some gradients on the panels facing downwards, like on the legs. Eventually we will repaint the bases in the same red color, and I want it to look like the light from the ground is subtly reflecting on the Marine's armor. After the basic blue bastards were nice and blue, I decided to brighten them up a bit, mixing in some sky blue with the Ultramarine blue, about 50-50 on each color. Then proceeded to carefully spray only where I wanted the armor to be the brightest, like the shoulder pads, kneecaps, top of the chest, the bum, you know, the bright areas. Now it would normally be really easy to overdo it with this highlight step, but this airbrush, as well as Gallery's budget airbrush, comes with a limiter that you can use that prevents the needle from being pulled back too far. It's like a little anti-Oonga device that helps me set the paint flow so I can be more consistent with highlighting in batches like this, as opposed to, you know, pulling the needle all the way back and completely flooding anything that I'm working on, which I often do because I have no self-control. I like the anti-Oonga device. Makes me caveman happy. The pure Ultramarine Zenithal took 31 minutes and 14 seconds, and then the highlighting took a little bit longer, 41 minutes and 21 seconds. I'm loving the way the blue is looking, but it's missing something, isn't it? And that something is called occlusion shadows. See, zenithal is great for capturing the shadows that can be seen when standing in the sun. Basically anything that isn't facing up is in shadow. But there is another type of shadow that is not captured well with a zenithal highlight, the occlusion shadow. See my forehead? Yes, I know it's small. It only fits 3 of my fingers. It's basically a 3 head. Notice how there are no shadows on my 3 head because of this nice big softbox in front of me? Now watch this. You see these wrinkles appear when my eyebrows go up? What's with that? They are still in direct light, aren't they? But they're definitely darker than the rest of my face because as my 3 head wrinkles, it lets less and less light in from around it. These are called occlusion shadows and are essential in rendering something so it appears realistic. Oil washes are great at this because they naturally slip into the cracks and crevices all around the model. Now, of course, the great downside of oil washes is that they make the model look dirty. Or do they? I firmly believe oil washes get this bad rep because oil washes are typically black or brown or a mixture of the two and applied at the very end of the painting process, dirtying everything up. Instead, I'm going to use pure ultramarine pigment for this oil wash. Because this coat is so similar to the previous coats, it looks less dirty while still greatly increasing contrast. Let's set these basic blue bastards outside to dry for a little while.
24 hours later.
Okay, it's been about a day. The oils are dry but not fully cured. So now we can use a makeup sponge to clean off the oil from where we don't want it. I'll remove almost all the oil but leave the deep recesses nice and dark, leaving the occlusion shadows behind for a more realistic look. All in, it took about 1 hour to apply the oils and 1 hour 15 to remove them after letting them dry overnight. And look at that, these basic blue bastards are basically done. That's right, 80-ish% of the paint job, the blue armor, already completed in just under 5 hours and 15 minutes. It's too bad that the 20% remaining is gonna take the bulk of the time on this project. And even more unfortunately, as much as I love the blue, it's not a great base color for the other colors that I wanna lay down. So we are gonna have to do a couple in-between layers to set ourselves up for successful future colors. Starting with burnt sienna, which will be a great color to lay down a future gold and creamy white layers on top of. I started with the shoulder pads using a long, thin brush. This brush is great as it holds a good amount of paint and the shape was perfect for giving the trim a coat in 1 or 2 swipes. I used a bit of retarder to keep the paint nice and wet through the process while also increasing the flow of the paint. The trick here is doing slow, confident brush strokes. Not everyone will be perfect, and that's okay. You'll get better and closer to perfect after each one. When you mess up, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I've got the perfect thing to clean up these shoulder pads later anyway. It's really not a big deal. In total, it took 97 minutes for the trim before moving on to painting the other bits with burnt sienna. To paint everything else that needed a brown, I switched to a larger brush and added some flow improver to the paint instead of retarder. This decreased the viscosity, helping the paint flow easier into the cracks of these basic blue bastards chest birds. While we got the brown out, let's also hit the leather bits, sword pommels, and anything else we want to paint gold later on. Now this step was a slog, in total taking 146 minutes split between 9 painting sessions, and I'd recommend not doing 100 marines at once. Realistically, after the airbrush and all over oil wash steps, you aren't really saving much time at all by doing this large of a batch. Switching down to sets of 20 or 30 or even 10 would be just as good, I think. But hey, big numbers in the thumbnail and title mean bigger views on YouTube, so I'm pushing forward. This ain't clickbait, I'm a man of my word. Since last step was a doozy of coloring in between the lines, I switched to something less mentally taxing, the bases. These were repainted with a minimum red primer to turn the bases into the basis of a Martian Earth. I thinned down the paint liberally here with a retarder and flow improver so it'd be nice and loosey-goosey and able to flow into the cracks and crevices. The added mediums also helped with increasing the working time of the paint, so I wasn't worried about paint drying on this big boy brush. This was a fast step, clocking in at 56 minutes and 24 seconds, or about 34 seconds per model. I did have to pay some attention to the step, mind you. I didn't want to ruin the beautiful blue boots on these basic blue bastards. Next up was some grim black speed paint to prep the future silvery metallic bits. No thinner here, I wanted these to be as dark as possible after giving them a single thick coat with 2 Cs, hitting the weapons and these weird backpack vents. And here you can really see the impact of having multiples of the same or similar poses lined up on these rulers. Instead of going model by model, covering each of them in black, I picked out one black bit and painted that bit on each of the models in a line. This is really where the speed from speed painting comes from. Instead of searching for the next bit to paint, you already know exactly what you should hit next, and your hands will already be in the right position. You just need to shimmy to the next one in line. And while you paint 4 or 5 or 6 instances of the same thing, you could be looking over the models to find the next bit to paint. I made a whole video on how I came across this speed painting hack a couple years ago when I painted 100 orcs like a factory. If you want to hear more about it, I highly encourage you to watch that video after this. Lots of great tips in there that I'm just going to kind of glaze over in this video. We got some new stuff to cover here. After 8 sessions totaling 120 minutes and 33 seconds, I moved on to painting the smaller black bits on the helmet. These tubes inside helmet disc things required a much smaller brush, one just large enough to tenderly tap the tubes to darken them down. This was a much shorter step, coming in at just 42 minutes and 34 seconds. Alright, finally enough base coating, let's lay down some metallics. I whipped out my current favorite gold, Pro Acryl Rich Gold, mixed with just a drop or two of flow improver on a pop palette and started going to town on the gold bits. Nothing special here, just going for a solid coat of gold to completely cover where we want metallic. This was used on the chest birds, the sword pommels, and a few other fancier bits across the 100 basic blue bastards. Once the gold was done, I switched over to Vallejo Metal Color Steel. This paint was much looser, but applied in the same manner as the gold, going for a 1-coat coverage where I can to save time. Since we're done with the metallics for now, let's totally switch gears and tackle some organics. I used some dark warm flesh on the leather bits, building up texture with multiple scratchy highlights. And yeah, you're right, these highlights look like absolute butt right now, but trust the process, we'll fix that with the next color. But before we can, we need to base coat some of the scrolls and the stern guards, very manly tabards. All in, the scratchy highlights and base coating of the skirts took about 72 minutes. Next up is some hardened leather, a fantastically named speed paint. Watch how the translucence of the speed paint combining with the pre-highlighting works in our favor. The highlights show through and we are left with a nice impression of hardened, worn-torn leather. This paint was also used to darken down the ribby in between plate joints, like behind the knees. Absolutely delicious and done in a modest 78 minutes and 23 seconds, or just 47 seconds per mini. Alright, we've done a lot of long steps in a row. Let's do something zippy quick. A heavy dry brush on the rocks with a bone color. Just like a small project after a large one, I find it important to bring in palette cleanser steps between long steps in a big project. If you have several long laborious steps in a row, a nice quick one feels absolutely invigorating. And popping out the rocky detail with this color took a refreshing 15 minutes and 30 seconds, or just 9.3 seconds per model. Fantastic. To finish the stern guard capes and the scroll portion of the purity seals, I used a heavy warm white, then came back in with a soft tone to redarken the recesses. All in, the heavy warm white took a bit over 26 minutes and the wash 42 minutes. The wash took longer because I also used this wash in all the gold bits as well. And just in case you don't know, you don't have to wash a whole model. Using this tool as a scalpel instead of a chainsaw is an absolutely valid strategy. The chainsaw is, of course, way more fun though, and I quickly slathered a juicy brown wash over all the bases to increase contrast. Time for the true bane of any mini painter's existence. Well, besides bad posture and expensive taste, that is. Eyes. Eyes are tough, but you know what they say, practice makes perfect. And having 100 Marines to work on seems like a fantastic practicing opportunity to me. I laid the basic blue bastards down flat on the table and let them rest on their backpacks and their rulers as much as possible, only using my hands to keep them in place. The reason for this is I'm trying to eliminate shaking as much as possible. Whether it's anxiety, caffeine, or anxiety caused by drinking too much caffeine, I tend to have a slight handshake, and this should help alleviate the problem. Now, I still messed up a lot doing this step. That's absolutely true, but I felt the further and further I got through this big batch of blue bastards, the more confident I felt in applying these tiny amounts of paint. And that confidence led to faster, more concise paint strokes that started to become muscle memory. And this is a memory my muscles will come back to painting eyes in the future. All in, the first coat of dark red on the eyes took just under 27 minutes, and an additional 26 minutes for the second brighter orange layer to boost up the brightness. After that tedious step of the eyes, let's switch back to something mindless and quick with a black wash for all the steel metallic bits. A nice, easy step, no thought needed, just lay down some wash over the steel bits and enjoy the process for a quick 27 minutes before popping out some purple alchemy speed paint to punch the purity seals with a pip of purple. No thoughts needed here as well, just a dab on each will do ya, and cost no more than 9 minutes 12 seconds to paint these. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly if you've watched my speed painting 100 orcs video, the painting itself for this step took almost no time at all. Most of the moments on this one are dedicated to searching the models themselves to find the seals. You can really see the benefit of keeping the same sculpts together here. Once I finally found a seal, it was boom, boom, boom down the line, and we were good to move on to the last of the basic steps: cleanup. Now, we are basically at a battle-ready tabletop standard for these basic blue boys, but I have made some mistakes along the way. So let's take some time, maybe something like 37 minutes and 25 seconds to bring out our blue and clean up some of the mistakes we made along the way. I used this time to clean up all the mistakes I could find with one exception: the shoulder pads, and for those, let me blow your mind. That's right, a fountain pen loaded with blue ink. This is the perfect solution for cleaning up around the shoulder pad trim. This is one of the cheapest fountain pens I could find. A 4-pack was $10 on Amazon. Link below, affiliate link, you don't pay more, I get small commission, you know the drill. And this pen with some matte blue ink worked like a dream. I used the trim of the pads as a guide, keeping the slightest bit of pressure on the trim side of the pen nib so the line it left was crisp and consistent. This pen was one of the most satisfying steps of the whole project, clocking in at an amazing 51 minutes and 50 seconds. And if you're just going for tabletop standard or battle ready, this is exactly where I would stop. At this time, if you were to add in the time it took me to paint the bases black, I'll do that in a little bit. It took 21 minutes, 51 seconds. You would be at about 15 and a half minutes per mini, or a total of 25 hours, 21 minutes, and 21 seconds for 100 basic blue tabletop ready bastards. But what if you wanted to push these even further? Well, I got 3 more hot and fresh techniques to show you. Let's go. First, let's grab another one of those fountain pens, but this time instead of loading it with ink, I mixed a wombo combo of black and ultramarine oil washes and sucked that into the pen. Now, this may completely mess up the pen in the long run. I don't know, maybe the mineral spirits will degrade the oil rings and the pen will fail in time. It's definitely a possibility. If you're gonna try this, use a really cheap pen like I'm using here. I'm a-okay risking $2.50 on a pen because with a pen filled with oil wash, we can go all around the models, and wherever you want a nice dark panel line, press the tip of the pen and... Isn't that crazy? Just look at that. Look at it. The oils flow out of the pens and fill up cracks and crevices like a dream. I don't know how to put the satisfaction of this into words. Let's just enjoy for a moment. Goddamn. This step was satisfying for sure, but it did take some time, clocking in at 155 minutes. But let me tell you, it was worth every single second, just like the next technique. This one solved one of my biggest frustrations and fixed my least favorite painting technique in mini painting, edge highlighting. And how do we solve that, you ask? Color pencils. All you need to do is swipe the pencils over the edge and you get a near perfect little highlight. Sometimes you gotta swipe a couple times, but it's still really fast, way faster than brushing. I used a light blue and a gray all around the Marines to give them a quasi heavy metal look with just an aluminum foil amount of effort. This step, while also easy, did take a lot of time. 233 minutes spent over the course of 10 sessions, but I did not mind that at all. See, when I was doing this step, it was a particularly stressful period at work, and I cannot tell you how much it meant to be able to take a break after a long day, or even just use some of my lunch break to sit down, turn my brain off, and just do some little highlights over these models. People talk a lot about how stress relieving this hobby can be, but some claim that speed painting does the opposite and becomes stressful or can cause burnout. And like, to an extent, I get it. If you're painting for hours and hours a day, I can see how that could potentially burn you out. But I don't get that kind of time with where I'm at in life right now, and if I hazard a guess, you probably don't either. I get like 20 to 30 minute chunks of time periodically throughout the week, and sometimes it's nice just to do and not have to think about what you're doing. For me, batch painting is often the ticket. You make a single choice, and get to do the same thing on 100, 50, 20, however many little models you want to do at a time. And I get that probably sounds mind-numbing to some of you, and like, yeah, that's the point. Sometimes life comes at you hard, and numbing the old mind down a bit for 20 to 30 minutes at a time ain't such a bad thing. After completing the color pencil edge highlighting, I brought out some black paint and removed the models from the rulers to hit the edges. We don't need the rulers anymore, and they get in the way of painting the edges black, which took a modest 21 minutes and 51 seconds. Alright, y'all want to see another crazy advancement in speed painting tech? Stamping plates by Goblin Hobbies. They sent me over their stamping plates to try, and I was very excited to give them a shot. Now, I've listened to some people talk about their experiences with these, and there's a similar story, a similar thread that tends to happen. At first, the person has a lot of challenges with using the stamps, then after practicing, they start to get it, they start to become proficient, and then they ultimately end up loving the product. And for me, yeah, pretty much the same, but my desk was also destroyed in the process. So how do these work? Well, basically you slap down some nail polish on this plate, quickly squeegee off the excess with a little card, or what I'd recommend is a vinyl squeegee. It works a lot better. You take this clear stamper thing and quickly grab the paint and gingerly press the stamp onto the model, transferring the paint. Easy, right? Well, no, not at first at least. Each of these steps has a lot of different variables. How much paint do you use? How quickly and firmly do you need to squeege off the excess paint? How long do you wait before picking this up? How hard do you press down on the stamp? How quickly does the paint dry on the stamp? Do you go straight up and down to pick up the paint, or a little wobbly dobbly? How hard do you press the stamp onto the model itself? How often do you need to clean the plate between steps? What do you do when you accidentally pour half a bottle of acetone directly onto your desk? No! Shit. Some of these questions are easy to answer. That last one in particular, panic, and look on with horror as you try to wipe up the acetone only to realize it is actively eating through your desk's finish. And some of these questions just aren't easy to answer and take lots of practice to figure out. For me, about 20 to 30 shoulder pads worth of practice to be particular before I started to get into a rhythm. Plop, swipe, dollop, aim, press, clean. Plop, swipe, dollop, aim, press, clean, and so on. I'd love to tell you the secret to using these, I really would, but it seems like it's just something that you need to get some experience with and get the hang of yourself. I apply enough paint to cover what I want to use on the stamp, swipe the squeegee with a medium-ish pressure, and gently as possible do a little roll to pick up the mark. I remove any strays as necessary with tape, then go straight up and down to apply the stamp. With the shoulder pads in particular, you need to apply a good amount of pressure so the shoulder pad goes into the silicone itself. It's like, you know, like the roundness of the pad has to get sucked into the stamper. I messed up quite a few shoulder pads through the process of my first run and had to repaint them blue before trying to stamp them again. All in, the stamping step took 121 minutes and 20 seconds. A little over a minute per mini, including the 10 minutes I needed to repaint a handful of the shoulder pads and stamp them again. I'm not sure how long it would take if I were to try decaling these basic blue bastards instead, but I have a feeling it would be a much longer process. I really like these stamps. If you're interested, I think they're worth picking up and trying for yourself. They definitely aren't perfect. Like, there's a little bit of wibbly wobbliness when you apply them, especially with curved surfaces. If you got a flat panel, it's easy, but any sort of curve, it distorts the impression. It distorts the mark. And they're a quick, fun way to add a little bit of flair to your models. Full disclosure, Brent from Goblin Hobby sent these to me for free to try out, but they didn't pay me or anything like that. In fact, they even sent a letter saying that, you know, if you don't get to these, no big deal. no pressure, which was much appreciated. Brent, thank you for that. I thought this was gonna take me a few weeks and this took me several months to do, so I appreciate the no pressure thing. At these time, unfortunately, they are totally out of stock of their starter kits on their website. Hey, Editor Nick here. There's been an update since I wrote and recorded the video. The stamping plates are either back in stock now or will be back in stock very soon per Goobertown Brent. I'll put a link to their website down below. Check them out. It's cool stuff. All right, back to the video. Good stuff though, Brent and Casey. Keep it coming. I would love to see more plates. One piece of critique is a little bit more space between each of the marks. And if you could do just one plate of ultramarine hues of different sizes, like the ones they provided are slightly too small or slightly too big for the shoulder pads, and having one in the middle there would be great. Thanks. Last step was to paint a few faces. I bought a lot of these Marines pre-assembled, and whoever built these before me made the strange choice of including some unhelmeted heads. Sacrilege, I know, but we gotta deal with it now anyhow. I used a dark warm flesh paint followed by a quick Reichland flesh shade and highlighted with a brighter skin tone, all in costing me just 6 minutes and 56 seconds, which brought our total time spent on these 100 Marines to 2,019 minutes and 43 seconds, or 33 hours, 39 minutes and 43 seconds, or just 20 minutes and 12 seconds per Marine. And for that amount of time, I am very, very pleased with how these turned out. There are a few changes that I would make if I were to do this project again to make the process even more efficient. And I'll throw a link to a video where I go through the spreadsheet and all the data down in the description if you're interested in that. I am very pleased with how these turned out and cannot wait to start on working on some of the cooler parts of my Ultramarine army. What do you think I should do next? A dreadnought? Some bikers? Shield guard? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to help support the channel, it would be awesome if you shared this video with your Marine painting friends or anyone who wants to paint a bit faster. I'm also trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, and if that happens, I will do a true 24-hour challenge, either painting a full 40k army or a whole Knight Titan in a day, consecutive 24 hours, start to finish. If you want to force me into some pain, that's how you can help. Subscribe. If you want to help me out financially, cut it out. Go give your money to a food bank instead. There are a lot of people out there who need the help way more than I do. I appreciate the thought. Help out your neighbors. All right, watch this video next. It's my 100 orcs. Goes over a lot of the techniques that I kind of just glazed over today in a lot more detail. And I'll see you on the next one. Stay happy and take care, y'all. Peace.
Look at what my wife made.
I can't wait to eat that. My wife made that. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays, y'all.